Hi, my name is Brian Grodsky. I am a professor in the Department of Political Science, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce myself and talk a little bit about how my work relates to disaster. I've been a first responder since the 1990s. I'm a volunteer firefighter and emergency medical technician. I've functioned as an emergency medical technician for about 10 years on a federal team, Disaster Medical Assistance Team, Maryland's first disaster medical assistance team. What's happening now is very much related to what I do both on the side and in my work, in my research. One of the core interests I have is disaster politics. And in fact, if you look at what we've got going on right now, this pandemic that we're all dealing with, this and other disasters are things that are highly predictable, and they're things that have been predicted for a long time. I've been teaching about the coming pandemic for years, using material that's even older than that, dates back to 2005. And so people knew this was going to come. But one of the questions that we have in the disaster world is how we get science into the policy debate. And that's a very difficult thing to do. We see this in the politics of climate change class that I teach as well. Many people simply don't believe in the science. And one of the reasons it's very difficult to get people to believe in the science is because science often offers prospects that aren't very cheery for people. And so they turn away from those. Science also doesn't do a very good job in saying this is exactly how we cure the problem. And when it does, for example, in the case of pandemics, there have been lots of great ideas, but they're very expensive. And politicians are highly unlikely to spend their money on things that they don't know are going to play out during their tenure. This, of course, comes back to the politics of human rights, another class that I deal with, and it comes down to the vulnerability of populations. There are certain populations that are going to suffer much more in disasters than other populations, and we see this playing out right now with the pandemic, where poor populations in particular are going to suffer much more. Those without the sorts of jobs that allow them to perform online and continue to earn money. Those who don't have health insurance. These are the populations that are going to suffer the most. On the other hand, we have certain populations, certain political elites, I should say, who are going to gain tremendously from disasters. Those who speak out, those who have a very loud voice, whether they're competent or not, tend to do well because the public, feeling completely alone and shocked and not knowing what to do, will look to them for help. Sometimes this leads to a backlash towards democratization, a movement away from democracy. And we see this, the picture that you see here is in Hungary, where Viktor Orban, the head of Hungary, has basically declared himself, given himself emergency powers to rule over the country, pushing parliament to the side and strengthening his own power. Disasters are all about power. Just look at who was tested first in the United States. It was those politicians who had the connections. It was certain NBA stars and movie stars who had the connections. My goal in my research is to look at ways that diminish these various injustices before and after a disaster hits and make us more prepared for the next disaster.